listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about North Carolina. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie.
Let's get scary.
It only took us 2 hours again to figure out all of our noise.
But now we know we sound pristine.
Hopefully.
Oh, no, we sound pristine.
Oh, okay.
You gotta be confident.
We sound pristine.
We sound great.
And I'm more confident with my new tattoo.
Yeah.
I got a sleeve.
Looks fantastic.
It's a snake going through different flowers. And I love how he heard when I said, I don't want roses. He added no roses.
Not a single rose in sight.
Not a single rose. But okay, you know imposter syndrome?
Yeah, of course.
I still feel like I have that with I feel like I'm an imposter tattooed person. Because, I have, 14 of my, little tattoos,
Yeah.
and now I have a sleeve, but I still don't feel like I'm a tattooed person.
It's okay if it makes you feel better. I also feel like an imposter as a tattoo person and someone with their septum piercing.
Yeah.
I'm not badass.
Right. But it's yeah. I don't feel like a tattooed person.
But I think that's okay because I think we know that we come across as more badass because, and there's also most tattoo people are really nice.
Yeah.
And we're really nice.
Yeah. But I also have the imposter syndrome too with my job where I'm I know what I do. I'm good at what I do. I know that I'm good at what I do and people have told me that I'm good at what I do, but I still don't feel like I'm good at what I do or that I know what I'm doing. And I'm a trainer. So I know what I'm doing and I'm very good at it, but I just don't feel like it. And it's that imposter syndrome.
My job is the one place that I'm yeah, I know what I'm doing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just weird. I know.
But that came from experience, which is why it's odd that you've been working in this job for
a long time.
And
I don't know what it is. It's just something about it.
I think you also don't really have the capability majority of the time. Sometimes you do, typically only when you're mad, to be yeah, I'm good at this. Don't fuck with me, whatever. That's not, you don't have that capability in general unless, you're pissed off.
I have recently.
So it's there.
It is there. It's just I don't know. It's so weird.
It just sucks that it comes out in an angry tone.
Right.
Versus mine, I'm I will never not think that there isn't more for me to learn. There's always more for me to learn.
Obviously, yes.
But am I a good teacher? Yes. Do my kids love me? 100%. Do I know what I'm doing? Absolutely.
Yeah. I know all those things. It's just that imposter syndrome where I'm but really, am I that? Am I?
So I'll just send you a text every morning. You fucking suck at your job.
Okay, because that's going to help me.
No, because the only way you stand up for yourself is if you're mad.
Okay.
And so you'll be nah, fuck you. I'm great at my job. I'm a trainer. I teach other people how to do my job. That's how good at my job I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay, cool. You win.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's what a best friend's for.
Oh, what would I do without you?
I'm not sure. Oh, that's only one person laughing. That's awkward. I was hoping it'd be the many people, as if we're really funny in front of an audience, but it's just one person. At least now I can hear it ahead of time.
Right, so we're not just sitting there in silence okay, did that pick up or not?
We're not just winging it because it's definitely in the state facts when I'm trying to do all the sound effects. It's not the one that I thought it was. So there's supposed to be a kissy one. There it is.
There we go. And now you can hear it, so it works out fine.
Yeah. So
I can just see that something's happening over on my side, but you can
that's also important.
Oh yeah, obviously. And that lets me know when I should and shouldn't talk.
Yeah.
All right, so should we jump into North Carolina?
I would love to.
Good.
I'm excited about North Carolina.
The dunes of Jockey's Ridge change with the wind, taking on the characteristic of deserts, hot, bright, and windy. Despite the volatile terrain, the tallest sand dune on the why am I having trouble reading? On the country's Atlantic coast.
Because you're not eating your microphone.
I know, probably. Provides a scenic perch for sunsets. Temperatures can get high, with the sand often much hotter than the air. Yes. Well, I mean, when you're young at the
you're
beach,
not wrong. You're not wrong.
and you're
this is a laugh of agreement.
oh yeah, I don't need my flip-flops to get from the beach to the other place, and then you die.
You never need it when you first walk down. You always need it when you walk back.
Yep. Oh, that first nice morning when it's just slightly chilly because the sun's not fully up yet and the sand's kind of cold.
But the sun warms you a little bit, kind of like a little cat.
Oh, I just want it again.
Yes.
That's the only part of summer I like is when I'm at the beach.
That's fair.
I hate summer otherwise. It's too hot. And I still have work. If I were a teacher and I got off for summer, I'd probably love it.
Yeah. It's definitely more enjoyable than I think other people find it.
because I still have to go to work and I still have to dress nice. So I'm still have to wear like pants and a long sleeve shirt. And
I mean, you're welcome to become a teacher anytime you like.
thank you, but no.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd have to go back to school too. And
No, you
that's a
wouldn't.
lot. Really?
Yeah. Got to take a few tests, do a couple hours.
Oh,
Maybe take a course or two here and there, but nothing.
that's okay. Then I would like truly have imposter syndrome. So we're good.
Yeah, and you do it for like a week and be like, what the fuck? I'm not doing this anymore. It's not worth summers off.
Yeah.
So,
Or holidays. But
it's right in the doorway.
I get some holidays and I'm okay with that. Okay, so back to North Carolina.
Back to North Carolina and their beaches.
For the full experience of the 80 to 100 foot dune, try kiteboarding or sandboarding, which are allowed by permit during parts of the year in a designated area. Hang gliding lessons are also available. All of those sound scary. The park on Nags Head in North Carolina's Outer Banks is bounded by Roanoke Sound to the west, home to big cordgrass, black needle rush, marsh pennywort, marsh elder, cattail, and lance-leaved sagittaria.
Not Sagittaria?
Maybe Sagittaria.
Well, I don't want. Does Sagittarius have one G or two?
That's a good question. A daylight use park only, morning visitors might also spy the
There's
tracks
one G, yeah.
of nocturnal animals such as foxes and lizards across the sand. So maybe.
It'd be lance-leaved Sagittaria.
It sounded like when I was naming all of those things that I was a witch and I was getting all
I
of my
was
things
just
for a
about to
potion.
say, none of those plants sound like pretty.
No.
They
I was like, I need a little of this black needle rush. I need some marsh pennywort.
Yeah, especially that one.
Yeah, that's where I really was like, this is
Lance-leaved Sagittaria.
Yeah.
That is its scientific name. I didn't feel like changing it.
All right, and now Mackenzie got some facts from ChatGPT, and you are welcome to sponsor us anytime. Can you close this door a little bit more? I hear Joe's
No, because
fighting.
his face is right there.
Oh.
So
We
I
don't think we'll
wouldn't-
pick up Joe's fighting game.
It never does.
Okay.
Never does. But I cannot close the door in your dog's face. He's in the doorway, paws looking at us.
Oh, baby.
Like I have half a mind to open the door.
Oh,
Hey, buddy.
my pumpkin.
Come on in. Okay, but you gotta lay down.
I know, I love you.
You gotta lay down, Bubba's. Okay.
Well, his bed's all pushed up against the side.
Well, whose fault was that?
The door.
No, you moved it.
Because we had to close the door.
No, I lifted it up and
I
closed
love
the
you.
door.
I love you.
But the thing is it can't be down unless the door is closed. Okay, there you go, Bubba's. You can lay down in your bed.
So the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, UNESCO World Heritage Site, is renowned for its ancient mountains, over 19,000 species of documented plants and animals, and iconic misty landscapes. It also features historic cabins, cascading waterfalls, and some of the best hiking in the Appalachian region. The Blue Ridge Parkway winds through the Blue Ridge Mountains, offering breathtaking vistas, diverse flora and fauna, and access to numerous hiking trails, such as the popular Craggy Gardens and Linville Falls trails.
Ah, yes. The old Craggy Gardens.
Those trails. Wildflowers bloom year-round, making it a hotspot for nature photography. Spanning over 500,000 acres, the Pisgah National Forest is home to the famous Sliding Rock, Looking Glass Falls, and the Appalachian Trail. Pisgah also hosts black bears, salamanders, and some of the highest peaks in the eastern United States. In addition to the Biltmore Estates gardens, the surrounding 8,000 acres are a haven for nature lovers, with wooded trails, a vineyard, and a managed forest. It also features one of the nation's earliest examples of forest conservation. There's also a Biltmore in, I think it's like Rhode Island or something, or Connecticut or something.
It's Los Angeles.
One that's haunted.
They used to say this one was haunted, but now the estates say that they're not haunted.
What hotel am I thinking of in Connecticut?
I don't know, but there is one in LA that is a Biltmore that is haunted.
Yeah, Providence.
Okay, well, there's another one.
Yeah, the Providence Biltmore, that's one in Rhode Island.
There's also one in LA.
So if you name anything Biltmore, it's going to be haunted.
Correct. That's what it sounds like.
The Grandfather Mountain is part of the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and supports rare ecosystems, including spruce fir forests. The wildlife habitats feature black bears, river otters, and cougars, making it a destination for families and conservationists. The Linville Gorge Wilderness is a favorite for adventurous hikers and rock climbers. The gorge boasts cliffs over 4,000 feet above sea level, pristine forests, and scenic views of the Linville River. The gorge is also home to endangered plant species like the Heller's blazing star. The Outer Banks wild horses are believed to descend from Spanish horses brought during early explorations. These wild horses roam freely from Carroll A and Shackleford Banks. Efforts to preserve their habitat include limited vehicle access and dedicated sanctuaries.
Every time I think about a horse on a boat, I think of the movie El Dorado.
Love that movie.
The Pryba.
Uwharrie National Forest covers nearly 51,000 acres. This forest is a popular destination for off-road enthusiasts, birdwatchers, and gold prospectors. It also features a unique blend of Piedmont and coastal plain ecosystems. Cape Hatteras National Seashore stretches over 70 miles. This area includes dynamic barrier islands shaped by wind and waves. The seashore supports sea turtles, migratory birds, and diverse marine life, along with famous lighthouses like Cape Hatteras and Bodie Island. The Venus flytrap habitat is found only within a 60-mile radius of Wilmington. These carnivorous plants thrive in boggy, nutrient-poor soils. That's weird. You would think
I was just about to say.
The state works to protect their habitats, which are increasingly threatened by development and poaching. At 18 miles long, Lake Matamuskeet serves as a vital stopover for tundra swans, snow geese, and other waterfowl during migration. The surrounding wetlands support a variety of fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Pilot Mountain State Park Namesakes Peak is a quartzite monadnock that rises 2,421 feet above the surrounding landscape. Thank you so much. It offers rock climbing, camping, and stunning views of the rolling Piedmont Hills. The Nantahala National Park is named after the Cherokee word for land of the noonday sun. This forest features gorges, waterfalls, and the popular Nantahala River. It's a hub for outdoor adventures, including ziplining, fishing, and scenic train rides. Mount Mitchell is a 6,684-foot mountain and is the tallest point east of the Mississippi. The summit offers a panoramic view of the surrounding Black Mountain Range and features a subalpine ecosystem rarely found in the southeast. Rowan Mountain Highlands are grassy balds that are known for their annual Chattawaba
Okay, hold on.
rhododendron.
Let's see. Good job.
Thank you. Annual Catawba rhododendron blooms, which blanket the highlands in purple each June. The area also hosts rare plant and animal species adapted to its cool climate. Croatoa. I know the whole lost colony happened here in North Carolina. Ooh, we had that as a trivia one day at one of our trivia things, and it was talking about something in North Carolina, and people were like, I was like, it's lost, like, colony of Roanoke, and people were like, no, that happened in Virginia. I said, I swear to God it did not.
They get it confused
with Roanoke in Virginia.
Yes. They get it confused with Roanoke in Virginia, which is also funny because it's an island, so, like, that's not going to work because Roanoke is in the mountains. Number two, I think they also get confused, maybe this is just me and I'm projecting, but in Roanoke, the first...
girl was Virginia Woolf.
And she was at Roanoke.
Yeah, so
I get it.
But yeah, we were at trivia one day, and they're like, no, that was in Virginia. I said, I swear to you, it's in North Carolina. If we get this wrong, I will 100% claim it. And we got it right. I said, boom, told you. The Croatan National Forest spans 160,000 acres and includes habitats like salt marshes, pocosins, and pine forests.
What's a pocosin? Which is a type of wetland found in the southeastern United States from Virginia to Florida.
Fitting. It's a paradise for bird watchers with species like ospreys and bald eagles, and also offers kayaking and fishing opportunities.
Did you know that the bald eagle just officially became our nation's bird, like, last year?
What?
It was never, like, in any officially recognized by Congress until, like, last year or something like that.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea.
So,
Merchants Mill Pond State Park is a unique blend of swamp and upland forest. It features cypress trees draped with Spanish moss and an abundance of wildlife, including alligators, otters, and great blue herons. I love Spanish moss.
Me too.
I think it's so pretty.
And I like the trees.
Yeah. The Great Dismal Swamp, which Kenzie covered in Virginia, right? One of our Virginia episodes. It straddles the Virginia-North Carolina border, and the swamp covers over 112 acres, and it's rich in history and wildlife. Its Lake Drummond is one of only 2 natural lakes in Virginia and North Carolina.
Interesting.
Wow.
I was just talking about natural lakes with someone yesterday.
Why?
Because I was telling her about Reston and, like, man-made lakes, and they were very confused as to why there's man-made lakes. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't make them. I just know that they're man-made. And apparently there's none in New Hampshire. And I was like, oh, Well, I don't know about anywhere outside of Reston, but apparently, yeah, there's only 2 natural ones. I bet the other one is Lake Anna, but I could be dead wrong.
Everything has been melting. Like,
Yeah, I can
so
hear that.
our gutter doesn't collect water.
Nice.
It goes all down the side of the back of our house.
Lovely.
So our steps are like completely like just a sheet of ice. I can show you when we go outside. It looks so weird. So since it's been just above freezing,
Yeah.
everything is melting and big blocks of ice are just like falling off the
Jesus
side of the house.
Christ.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. And we had like icicles and you look up at them and they're like icicles.
Yeah, I see them.
Oh, you can see them out there too?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's our like back of our house is just water. So the Carolina Bays are mysterious oval-shaped depressions that dot the coastal plain and are often filled with water, creating unique habitats for frogs, turtles, and rare plants like the pitcher plant. Their origin remains a geological mystery. Ooh. And then the Shackleford Banks are a remote barrier island. This part of Cape Lookout Seashore is known for its wild horses, which have adapted to the harsh environment with limited fresh water. Visitors also enjoy its unspoiled beaches and excellent shelling opportunities. There's a lot there from North Carolina.
Yeah, I just typed in, you didn't read my thing
Yes, I did.
up at the top.
Yes, I did. You were too busy making a sound effect.
Well, I didn't hear it. Did you tell them that
Yes.
they should? Okay.
You were, again, too busy focused on making a sound effect.
Okay, well, cool. I mean, as long as you said it.
I did. I definitely did.
But yeah, that's North Carolina for you.
But yeah, I do like North Carolina.
We can check it off our list. This is going to be so fun for you when you listen back.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have such a good time.
Yeah.
I'm just really happy we're not eating our mics right now.
Oh my God, it feels weird. I feel how like I have so much freedom.
I know. I can
I can move my head.
turn and talk and it still catches my voice. Okay, Mackenzie. Let me get my comfy position.
Just say get comfy.
Oh, all right. What story you got for me today?
Today I have a 2-for-1 special,
We love it.
a murder and a haunting.
Oh.
I ended up not going quite so into the haunting stuff just because there was already so much.
Yeah.
And I was tired. But it's thrown in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the murder is considered solved, but it has been argued that the real killer was never caught. So before you make your final judgments, listen to all the facts.
Okay.
At one point, I will have a check-in to see what you're thinking.
Okay.
Before, I'm strategic in my information giving. I felt like
Perfect.
really like little sleuthy
Oh, love it. Love it.
because I feel like I found something that I at least in the resources that I checked have not seen before.
Okay.
So I'm like, I figured it out. Call me Sherlock Holmes. But yeah, you'll get a check-in later.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. I'm ready.
The story of Nell Cropsey is one of North Carolina's most enduring mysteries. Also, if you hear Crosby or Cosby, because the last name is Cropsey,
Okay.
let me know.
Okay. So I should only be hearing Cropsey.
Cropsey.
Cropsey. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of like, you don't watch Bob's Burgers, do you?
Yeah.
Mopsy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cropsey, Mopsy, same
Yep.
thing. Got it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good to go.
Thank you. The story of Nell Cropsey is one of North Carolina's most enduring mysteries, a tragic tale of young love, heartbreak, and a haunting that lingers over Elizabeth City to this day. I always see signs for Elizabeth City, and I've never been.
I don't think I've ever seen signs. Oh my God. Do you remember when we were going to Blue Ridge? And we were supposed to stay in Virginia. And then you and I are just talking. And then all of a sudden we see the sign, "Welcome to North Carolina."
We're not in Kansas anymore. We went a little too far.
We were just like, oh no. And Joe's
But
like,
also,
what?
Also, in our defense, we backtracked and got right on our way, and we still like the route that we had to take still took us.
It still takes you into North Carolina because it's right on the border. Like the raceway or whatever is right on the
Yeah.
border, Virginia, North
But
Carolina.
then you come back.
It was so funny.
I'm like, that's not right.
Okay.
But yeah, you've seen Elizabeth City every time you drove down to the Outer Banks.
Oh, okay.
Born Ella Maud Cropsey in 1882, Nell grew up as the second of 6 children in a well-respected and close-knit family. Her parents, William and Mary Louise Cropsey, had relocated the family from Brooklyn, New York to North Carolina in 1998, seeking a quieter life in the South.
1998?
1898,
Yep.
seeking a quieter life in the South. They purchased a stately white house overlooking the Pasquotank River, where they quickly became part of the local social fabric. Nell was known for her striking beauty, described as having dark, captivating eyes and a commanding presence. The young 19-year-old had an outgoing personality that made her popular in Elizabeth City, where she attended social events and quickly caught the attention of suitors. One of these was Jim Wilcox, the son of a former sheriff and a man of modest means compared to the Cropsey family's relatively affluent standing. Wilcox was 25 years old and worked at the shipyard while in school taking law courses.
Oh.
Nell and Jim began courting in 1899, so I think she was like about to turn 18.
Well, you said she was 19.
For the currentness of our story, she's 19, but they started in 1899.
Okay. So they were like a 6-year age difference?
Well, he would have been a couple years younger. He would have been 23. She would have been, I think she was 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 6 years.
Yeah. Whatever. That. Nell and Jim began courting in 1899, and for nearly 3 years, their relationship seemed to follow the typical path of young romance. However, by 1901, tension had begun to surface. So we're in 1901, when 25 and 19.
Okay.
Nell was happy to support Jim in his endeavors, but her patience had a limit, which, homie's working a job and going to school.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to be Big Daddy Warbucks for you.
But I also get it at the same time.
And it's the time.
It is the time.
At the time, a young woman like Nell was expected to secure a stable marriage, and Jim's hesitation cast doubt on his intentions. I mean, a 3-year relationship, no proposal in 1901?
Right.
That's crazy.
I mean, even nowadays, it's like kind of crazy, but kind of not. I don't know. I was thinking of watching The Ultimatum, and some people are like, I've been dating him for 2 years. He is not ready to get married. You've been dating for 2 years. Calm down.
And I think it depends, too, where you are, because if you've been living together for at least a year out of those 2 years, then I could kind of see it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once you live with someone.
Right.
But also, the one thing we really need to do is stop putting like you've been together for 6 years and no ring. Maybe that was their choice.
Right.
Like, let her be the judge of that. If she has the expectation of like, after 2 years or whatever, then yeah, if that's not what you're getting, then don't stay.
Like, because I have one of my friends, him and his girlfriend technically are domestic partners.
Yeah.
So they don't want to get married. They're cool being domestic partners. So they've been together for like, oh my God, 10 plus years.
Right.
But they don't want to be married. They're cool being domestic partners.
There's a podcast I listen to, and the 2 girls that host it are very much in that similar position where they're like, didn't have any desire to get married, definitely don't have a desire to have any kids. I think they're both just turned 40 or something like that. And one of them got engaged and married, but like in Vegas for the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
They live in LA. And it was so adorable. And then when the other one got married, what I thought was so sweet about it is she had both of them were like, no, we don't have to get married. We're just going to be together. I think they've been together for like 7 or 8 years at this point.
That's how my friend is.
But he decided to propose.
Oh.
Because it wasn't for government purposes, for taxes, for whatever. It was like very much like, or like next step, like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
It was just very much, I'm so in love with you.
Oh.
And I want to show you how much I'm in love with you by, being married to you. Like in that aspect. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want. If I don't have it, I don't want it.
That's cute.
Like, I was like, that's the most genuine engagement I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, let me take that back. That's not the most genuine engagement I've ever heard. It's those types of engagements that are so genuine.
Yes.
Because if your first response is, I have to, or I should.
Right.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, didn't mean to get up on a soapbox. But yeah, so we get why Nell was impatient, but we also
it was the times. Yeah.
It was the times. He was trying. And like a typical 19-year-old, she hoped that if she sparked some jealousy, making him see that she was desired by other men, then she could push him towards proposing. As I was writing this story and then rereading it, it was very much like a young 19-year-old, not saying she's not in love, but having different life experiences than this guy who's coming in who's a little bit older.
Yep.
25 in 1901, you're practically ancient.
You've lived a whole life.
Right. And he comes from such a different background. It reminded me of The Notebook.
Oh.
And like that's who I pictured these two being like.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now that's who I'm going to picture as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Nell would flirt with the men at church and started spending more time partaking in church activities for their young patrons. Jim would sulk and told Nell he thought she was neglecting her former friends, himself included.
I really love the name Nell.
Right? Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's Ellie Maud Cropsey, and she goes by Nellie. So you'll, I forgot to mention that. Occasionally you'll hear me say Nellie.
Okay.
So sometimes, like in conversations, people called her Nellie. Even the newspaper article went back and forth between Nell and Nellie. So all the same person, though. Oh, and apparently, or supposedly, people said Jim had a temper.
They always do. It seems like every man back then had a temper.
Right. You know, it was one of those things like it's coming from like mom and sister.
Right.
So it's like, of course, they're going to, you know, back the girl.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like I said, keep an open mind as we go through this.
Okay.
Okay?
Open mind. Yes.
Yes. So the couple got into their first real argument after Neil flirted with a man from Canada in front of Jim and even made fun of Jim's southern accent.
Oh.
Jim told Nell that he was upset with what she did, and an argument ensued. After that, it seemed easier for the couple to get into disputes that would end in Nell's tears and Jim's apologies. Despite these growing tensions, the couple continued to see each other, their relationship marked by both affection and frustration. In November of 1901, Jim and Nell got into a particularly heated argument that ended with Jim leaving and not returning until 2 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
Which is interesting, putting yourself in that mind. Like 2 weeks, 1901, no contact. I'm sure that was, you know, no idea where you are.
Right. And because, like, at least now, like, I can track your phone. I can get a text from you knowing you're okay. I can text my friends and be like, oh my God.
Like, I feel like that's the
on.
equivalent of blocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Like, even in now when we have all this technology, that's a long time.
Yeah. If you ghost me for 2 weeks, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the chilly evening of November 20th, 1901, the Cropsey home was lively with family and friends. According to witness statements, Wilcox showed up around 8 p.m. and Ollie, Nell's older sister, her name is Olive, goes by Ollie.
Cute.
Answered the door. She said to Wilcox...
And Wilcox is...
Jim.
Okay.
The boyfriend.
Right. Okay.
She said to Wilcox, oh, come in. Nellie will be so glad to see you. Roy's here, who's Ollie's suitor. And so is our cousin, Carrie Cropsey from Brookland.
What was the cousin's name?
Carrie.
No, the boy.
Roy.
When you said that, his head popped up.
Oh.
And then it went back down.
Wilcox went in and stayed a while, socializing with the group. Nellie shared that she had a foot injury and was wearing one regular shoe and one old-fashioned boot-type thing on her injured foot. It was noted in a newspaper article from 1946 that the conversation took a dark turn and the group started discussing, trigger warning, discussing suicide and possible methods.
Oh, I mean...
It never says why. It's never brought up again.
I mean, in all honesty, it's just sometimes weird conversations you pop into.
Well, that's kind of what I thought so, too.
Yeah.
It was like, it's two sisters. Both sisters have been in a relationship for about the same time, so I know the men know each other well, too.
I don't think it's weird, in all honesty, because, like, yes, it's a sensitive topic, but it's just, like, one of the games, we have this game called Tapple downstairs, and it's all these different letters, and you got, like, a card, and it'll be, like, vacation destinations. So I would click down B, beach. So now no one else can answer B, but they have to do another one. So one of them was, like, non-traditional murder weapons, weird ways to kill someone, like, things like that.
Yes.
So then you get into it, and you're laughing as you're doing it, because it's not that the topic is funny, but it's that the game, that why you're doing it is funny. You know what I mean?
Odd to include as, like, clearly this was like someone was giving a statement of what happened. And they included that.
I mean, I obviously don't know what's happening in the story, but maybe they included it because of what happened. So that's why I would think, like, obviously at the time, it's not something significant.
I gave you it.
Oh, thank you. At the time, it's not something significant, but then it, like, later down the road, you're like, oh yeah, we did talk about this.
Yeah. So it does have a connection to it, but it's just initially it's alarming of like, that's like a conversation like between friends. Like, yeah, things take weird turns. You talk about weird shit because you're comfortable, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
But I would never go and then tell other people, yeah, my friends and I talk about this, that, and the other.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I get
So,
that. Yeah.
Like, it was just kind of like, whoa, that's... And there's no other context besides it just took a dark turn and this is what they started talking about.
Okay.
We have no idea why. We have no idea what led to it, which I feel like is huge in those kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
But
typically,
you are correct in the sense that it kind of has to do with what happens later.
Okay.
Okay. Jim was reported saying, quote, I'd rather drown myself. And Nellie responded, quote, oh, I wouldn't. I'd rather freeze to death.
See, I don't know. I just don't think it's that weird. I think I've had conversations like that before where you're like, would you rather blah or blah?
Yes, I agree. It's just weird to hear other people doing it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
You know, because it's not talked about regularly, because it's considered taboo or whatever, we know we have these conversations, but you don't go out in public and assume
Others do.
or that they know you've had that conversation. Like, you wouldn't just like bring it up to a random stranger.
Yeah.
So like, it's
Yeah.
not weird in the context of, yes, they were with their friends, but it's weird in the sense that it was publicized.
Okay, I got you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the way that it was.
Yeah.
Around 11 p.m., as the evening wound down, Jim asked to speak with Nell privately. The two stepped onto the front porch, and the only thing the others could hear was the sound of the front door closing. After some time, Carrie excused herself and went to bed. That's the cousin.
Mhm.
And about 15 minutes later, Roy Crawford went on his way. That's the sister's suitor. He walked out the front door, down the porch, and out to the street without seeing anybody.
Okay.
Ollie went off to bed and assumed that Nell was either still with Jim or had gone off to bed already. Nell, however, did not return inside.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime around 1 a.m., the entire house was awoken when the family dogs and pigs began frantically barking and squealing. They heard a neighbor shout, "Cropsey, Cropsey, someone's after your pigs, get your gun." This next part is a little funny when you think about it as like a father trying to find his daughter and her boyfriend.
Okay.
Doesn't end well, but
I didn't assume it would, but
Yeah.
okay.
but it's amusing in that sense. Ollie jumped up and ran into the hallway to call after her father that it might be Nellie and Jim and to not shoot them.
Oh,
Like, she did not know where they were, and she was like, "Wait, it might
don't
be
shoot
your daughter."
them. Yeah.
Mr. Cropsey mumbled frustratingly, "What's that girl thinking of, out at this hour disturbing the dogs and the pigs?" Mr. Cropsey went out to investigate and found no Nell, no Jim, and no pig robber. He returned inside to see if she'd gone to bed without her sister realizing it, but she was not.
Mhm.
At this point, Mr. Cropsey was fuming.
Ooh.
He stormed off to the Wilcox house and decided that even if Jim wasn't home, he would just wait until he returned so he could lecture him on the conventional standards of keeping a young lady out until all hours.
Yeah.
Mr. Cropsey arrived after a 10-minute walk and pounded on the door. He explained his purpose to a tired Mr. Wilcox, as in Jim's father,
Mhm.
and announced that he intended to stay until Jim came home. Mr. Wilcox told Mr. Cropsey that Jim had been home since midnight and was currently fast asleep.
And what was the time that they had gone out to talk, him and Nell?
About 11:15. Or about 11.
Okay.
11:15, the cousin went to bed. About 15 after that, so like 11:30, Roy left,
And no one's outside at 11:30.
supposedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Jim, his name right?
Yeah, he had left.
He's home at 1.
No. Everyone woke up at 1. His dad said he was home by midnight.
By midnight. Okay.
Yeah. And had been asleep.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just getting my timeline set.
Yeah. No, you're good. Mr. Cropsey wasn't having it and demanded to speak with Jim immediately. Mr. Wilcox persuaded Mr. Cropsey that the deserved scolding could wait until the morning. Fair.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilcox said that it was possible Nell had already returned back home, so Mr. Cropsey returned home only to make a second fruitless search for Nell. Mr. Cropsey's anger began to turn to fear, and he went to the nearby home of Police Chief Henry Dawson to report Nell's disappearance. The chief immediately got himself dressed and joined Cropsey for his search of his daughter. The Cropsey family was well regarded in the community, and Nell's disappearance struck a deep chord. Neighbors rallied to help, combing the surrounding area, dragging the Pasquotank River in search of clues. Lanterns flickered in the cold November nights as volunteers scoured the woods and water for any sign of the young woman. Suspicion immediately fell on Jim Wilcox, as he was the last person to see Nell. Soon after Mr. Cropsey had awoken the chief, the two men had gone back to the Wilcox home and again pounded on the door. The chief told Mr. Wilcox they needed to speak with Jim, and this time Mr. Wilcox did not protest. Jim soon joined his father and the other men and was immediately bombarded by questions from Mr. Cropsey, demanding to know where his daughter was. Jim sat confused and said, quote, "Why, home, isn't she? I left her on the porch around 11:15.
Oh, okay.
Chief Dawson explained that Nell had disappeared and asked Wilcox for the exact accounts of his movement that evening. So according to reports, Jim recounted, quote, "Well, I left this house," meaning his father's house, "about 8 o'clock. I had Nellie's picture and an umbrella of hers, which I'd kept the last 2 years as a sort of keepsake.
Aw.
I was going to give them back to her and tell her I would never see her again," which is so dramatic.
Oh, wait, so they're breaking up now?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was going to break up with her.
Even though they were like engaged?
No, they weren't engaged.
They-
That was the problem.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah,
she was doing what she was doing, and he was like, "I can't do this anymore."
Oh,
Yeah. But it's just so dramatic to say I will never see her again.
I will never see you.
Then I was going to leave. I didn't intend to stay at her house more than a minute, but Ollie answered the door, so I had to stay. At 11, I asked Nellie out onto the porch. I gave her the umbrella in the picture and said I wasn't coming back anymore. She began to cry. She was leaning against the porch post with her head on her arm, and she wouldn't stop crying. 3 times I told her to go in, like inside.
It reminds me of like, all those Disney characters when they like fall down their arms.
Yes, that's exactly what I
That's
pictured.
what it makes me think of.
But she just cried. I said I had to go. I told her I had to meet a man at Barnes Bar Room before it closed. She stopped crying long enough to say, "Go on then." So I did. Chief
Get out of here. No one wants you anymore.
Leave. Chief Dawson asked Wilcox what happened next, and he explained, quote, "Well, I was pretty agitated, and I wandered around some in the moonlight, maybe a half hour, and then I went to Barnes Bar and had a beer with Len Owens, and then I came home to bed."
Okay, so what we're thinking is the disappearance happened in like a span of 15 minutes. Because if they had their talk at 11:15, and then the one dude leaves at 11:30 and didn't see anyone, so we're like a 15-minute gap here.
Supposedly. He didn't see anyone.
Oh, okay.
About an hour later, Wilcox had dressed and accompanied the chief and Mr. Cropsey to the Cropsey home, where Wilcox repeated his story to Nell's weeping mother. Mrs. Cropsey did not believe a word of Wilcox's story. She shouted at him, "It's a lie. You've abducted her. You've hidden her. If your story is true, where's the umbrella in the picture?"
Well, okay.
The umbrella was found in the hall closet, where it could have been placed by Jim or Nell. However, the picture was not found. Chief Dawson told Wilcox, "Well, Jim, I guess you'll have to go to jail till we get this settled."
What?
1901. I don't know. By the dawn of November 21st, Wilcox was behind bars in Pasquotank County Jail.
Oh my gosh. Things have changed because nowadays I don't think you could just be like, well, you were the last one to see her, so.
Well, even this newspaper was like, I guess the whole innocent until proven guilty just didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. For 40 agonizing days, the Cropsey family waited for news. Bloodhounds had been sent loose around the Cropsey house and followed Nellie's scent, from the porch to the farmhouse and then to the boathouse. But they showed no sign that she entered these places or that she had gone to the river's edge. There were also no traces of her along the riverbank. The river had been dragged, and more than 100 houses in town and adjoining counties had been searched. Then, on December 27th, Nell's body was discovered floating in the icy waters of the Pasquotank River just a short distance from her home.
Oh, no.
She had suffered a blow to the head, and though her death was officially ruled a drowning, the circumstances surrounding her demise were suspicious. How did she end up in the river? Had she been killed elsewhere and her body dumped? These questions gripped the town, and justice for Nell became the community's rallying cry. Sheriff N.G. Grandy quickly found Jim, who had been staying at his dad's farm while out on bail, and brought him back to the jail on a warrant charging him with murder.
Jim?
Yep. The people of Elizabeth City were wound up with excitement, so much so that there were threats of lynching, and the governor at the time sent, like, National Guard, military, whatever it was in 1901,
oh my gosh,
to quell the riled-up gathering crowd. So something a little odd. Dr. Irving Faring and 2 Elizabeth City physicians found that Ella Maud Cropsey had died, quote, by being stricken a blow on the left temple and by being drowned in the Pasquotank River.
And this is Nell.
Yes.
Okay, read it again.
By being stricken a blow on the left temple and by being drowned in the Pasquotank River.
Oh, wow. Okay.
However, contrary to a usual condition after death by drowning, the coroner's report stated that no water had been found in Nellie's lungs, pleural cavity, or stomach.
So she was already dead when she went into the water.
A pleural cavity, according to Google, for those of you that don't know, because I didn't know, is the, quote, space between the lungs and the chest wall lined by a thin tissue membrane called the pleura. The pleura covers the lungs and lines the inside of the chest cavity.
Okay.
So it's basically nothing, no water.
Right. So she wasn't breathing.
Correct. The 2 physicians reported that the blow to her head was caused by a round padded instrument, something like a blackjack. And when I searched up what a blackjack was, the best way to explain it is that it looks kind of like a shorter version of a police nightstick.
Okay.
Almost like the size from the tip of my finger down to like where my sweatshirt line is.
Okay.
Versus like, I feel like a police one is like the length of like your arm or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wasn't able to find why someone in the 1900s would be carrying this around. Like what?
Yeah, like what reasoning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The report also included that there were no other, quote, marks of violence and Miss Cropsey died a virgin. I interpret this as no signs of sexual assault.
Yep.
Despite what the coroner had reported as a death by drowning, he ended up testifying that that was incorrect. That Nell did not die by drowning, but that she was either dying or dead before she hit the water.
Yep.
3 months after Jim Wilcox was arrested and charged with Nell's murder, he was put on trial at Pasquotank County Superior Court in Elizabeth City. His trial became a public spectacle, drawing widespread attention. It took 2 days to pick a jury that was satisfactory to both sides. The prosecution painted him as a spurned lover who, in a fit of rage, had killed Nell and discarded her body. However, the evidence against him was largely circumstantial. There were no witnesses to the crime, and the exact sequence of events on the night of Nell's disappearance remained unclear. Leonard, or Len, Owens, the young man that Jim had claimed to have drunk a beer with at Barnes on the night of Nell's disappearance, testified at the trial confirming Jim's story. He told the court that around 11:50 he was walking up to the bar and spotted Wilcox coming from the direction of the Cropsey house. They talked briefly outside and then went in and had a beer. He testified that Jim was calm and didn't say much about his argument/breakup with Nell.
Mm-hmm.
He also said that Wilcox did not behave like a man who had just committed murder.
Okay.
It was interesting, though, because this witness was the prosecution's witness.
Oh.
And I'm like, so that puts Jim at the bar, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's like, so far,
He's where he said he's been.
Mm-hmm. The defense tried to claim that Nell had taken her own life after being so heartbroken about her breakup with Jim. However, Jim's lawyer wasn't able to explain how the bloodhounds failed to pick up her trail to the water's edge.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't found until 40 days later by her home in the river that had been checked.
Yeah. The river that she did not drown in.
Right. To me, this was implying that if she had taken her own life, she would lie where she fell, and her body wasn't discovered until over a month later.
Right.
The prosecution showed the jury that at least 25 minutes of Wilcox's time that evening was unaccounted for. Wilcox said he left Nell at approximately 11:15.
Yeah.
If Owen saw him arriving at the tavern at 11:50, and assuming it took Wilcox about 10 minutes to walk from the Cropsey home to the tavern, where are the other 25 minutes? However, the defense tried to argue that Wilcox had been wandering around due to his agitation over the breakup, like he stated at the beginning of the investigation.
Yep.
The defense also noted, quote, if Wilcox had been carrying a body in the water and certainly couldn't have left it at the water's edge or it would have been discovered that night, his clothes, or at least his trouser legs, would have been wet.
Right.
Yet his clothing was dry at 11:50 when Owens met him. The jury deliberated for about 18 hours and returned with a verdict of guilty for first-degree murder and sentenced Jim Wilcox to death by hanging.
Wow.
Wilcox's defense argued that his client had not had a fair chance in Elizabeth City. After all, the residents had already decided that if the jury had found him not guilty, they would take justice into their own hands.
Right, exactly.
The defense requested a new trial and a change of venue because of public bias. This was granted by the North Carolina Supreme Court. About 10 months later, Wilcox went on trial again in Hartford, North Carolina. I don't know how far that is from.
No idea.
The jurors agreed that a body found in a river without water in the lungs could not have gotten there without outside assistance.
Yeah.
Again, Wilcox was found guilty. However, the jury determined it should be a charge of second-degree murder.
Okay.
Jim Wilcox was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Jim Wilcox served 15 years before being released, maintaining his innocence until his death.
Why was he released? Like good behavior kind of thing? Or... Okay.
In 1918, he was granted a pardon by the governor of North Carolina at the time.
Okay.
When Wilcox returned to Elizabeth City, he spent the rest of his days silent and bitter about what he deemed as a wrongful conviction.
Yeah.
On December 4th, 1934, 16 years after Wilcox had been granted his full pardon, Wilcox, now 58, took his own life by shooting himself in the head with a double-barreled shotgun.
Oh my God.
Despite his conviction, questions about his guilt lingered. Some in Elizabeth City believed he had been unfairly scapegoated, while others were convinced he knew more than he admitted. An article from 1934 that was published soon after Wilcox's death claimed that many people from the Cropsey family knew more about what happened to Nell than what they were willing to tell. Wilcox, when he got out, stayed with some guy, forget his name, who he had like a farm or something.
Okay.
And like he like took him in and allowed him to like sleep there and stuff like that.
Okay.
So the man who owned the farm that Wilcox had been staying with during his last years after his release told reporters that Wilcox claimed to have buried a tin box that contained written notes of information about the disappearance and murder of Nell Cropsey. The man reported, though, that he hadn't found any tin box, but he also hadn't been looking either.
That's so weird. Okay.
He didn't believe that there was a box.
Yeah.
Or that it contained any important information. So he's like, I'm not going to waste my time looking.
Yeah.
We know nothing more about that box.
What the heck? They didn't, like, the cops or whatever didn't want to go look?
Before I give you this last bit of information, thoughts so far?
Okay. I don't know if Jim is involved, but it is very clear that she was dead before she went into the water.
Correct.
So she had died sometime before then.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think, too, if she was found so long after that she was kept someplace else where she was killed and then dumped into the water.
Sure.
He could have been guilty for it. Well, okay, wait. So she was found 40 days.
But he would have max 50 minutes.
But question.
Yeah.
How long after she was found, or like in what time frame was she found to when he was put in jail?
He was put in jail the next night.
Okay, so then I don't think he did it, because then who, unless he had an accomplice.
Well, he was out on bail.
when her body was found.
I believe so.
Oh. I don't know. I don't think he did it. But I don't know. But like you said, he would have had 50 minutes. I don't know.
To kill her, hide her body, and get to the bar.
Well, I'd say less than 50 minutes, because if technically they were together at 45 or at 11:15 and he was at the bar at 11:50, that's 35 minutes.
But they went outside at 11.
Okay, valid. Right.
So everything started at 11. So that would have given him 50 minutes
right.
to do everything and then get to the bar. Not dirty, out of breath, disheveled, calm, cool, collected.
And I mean, it makes complete sense that you walked around for a little bit afterwards.
I've done that.
And because he's a man too, so he doesn't have the fear of walking around at night. So that's just like a nice way to clear your head. Still, it's just a nice way to clear your head for a man.
Yes.
And I mean, he even said that at the beginning. He's like, I walked around. And then they're like, oh, there's this unaccounted for time. He was walking around. Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Something that I found reported by the Daily News newspaper in 1946 was that Mr. Cropsey had received a letter postmarked Utica, New York.
Okay.
The writer said that he had information concerning the events of November 20th, 1901. Sorry, I should also note that her body was found in December. He received this letter, according to the newspaper, I think like Christmas Eve. Something like that.
So very relatively.
So he gets this letter Christmas Eve. Her body is found the 27th.
Oh.
Keep that in mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
He said Jim Wilcox left Nellie crying on the porch, just like he had told Chief Dawson and Mr. Cropsey.
And so this is just like an unknown person speaking about this.
Yep. This is what the letter contained.
Okay.
The writer said that Nellie was on the porch for some time, but it didn't mention anything else of where she might have been when Roy Howard had left the Cropsey house.
Right.
The letter said that when the dog started to bark, Nellie went from the porch to the yard to investigate the cause of the commotion. The letter stated, quote, she found an Elizabeth City man stealing a pig. She recognized him and threatened to inform her father. Thereupon, this man stunned Nell with a stick, carried her body to the river, dumped it into a boat, and rode her unconscious or dead to a mill not far from where he hid her in a hole in the earth. Later, her body was taken to a nearby swamp. When the search for her got underway, her murderer dumped her body into the river.
Okay.
The writer predicted that Nellie's body would be found at a given spot. He even marked it on a diagram he sent with the letter where the exact spot would be. It was reported that Mr. Cropsey had read the letter and noted its contents. If he turned it over to the police, nothing was ever officially noted.
Okay.
I don't think he did turn it over to the police because of what I'll tell you later. However, the 1946 article notes, quote, yet just 5 days later, Nellie's body was found by a fisherman at that very spot.
That was going to be my next question.
190 yards downstream from the Cropsey boathouse. So this person knew where her body was.
They're the murderer.
Why was Nell not found quickly in the original search if she had been at the river the whole time?
Right.
Jim wouldn't have had time to go far out of his way to dump her body and still get to the bar and home by midnight if he had left the Cropsey house at 11:15. That he said. Another thing, why didn't Mr. Cropsey hand the letter over to police? If he had, why didn't they follow up with any information or even make it? This was never known that this letter was sent. Not once during the trial was the letter from Utica ever mentioned.
That's weird. Later
in that same newspaper article, it was reported, quote, on January 27th, 1903, a few days after the sentencing, Jim Wilcox's father received a letter postmarked in Utica, New York. This time, we know that Mr. Wilcox turned it over to a newspaper. The reporter talked to Mr. Cropsey about the letter he had received, to which Mr. Cropsey admitted to receiving a similar letter 13 months earlier.
Wow. Okay.
The newspaper goes on to report, quote, the only difference between the two letters was that the second named the local youth who, when caught stealing a pig, killed Nellie. The newspaper man turned both letters over to authorities. Nothing was done.
So wait, did you say the letter mentioned the name of the person?
The second letter, they named who did it.
Oh.
Well, I don't know who they named. But it was given to authorities and nothing was done. Yeah. Yeah. For the Cropsey family, the loss of Nell was a devastating blow from which they never fully recovered. The family eventually moved back to New York, leaving behind the house that had become synonymous with tragedy.
Where in New York?
I don't know.
Anywhere near Utica?
No, I'm assuming it would have just been back to New York City.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, like, that's kind of weird. You know, the letters are coming from a place in New York.
Yeah, but I think it was like a bit before they moved.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think all the letters were sent before they moved.
Yeah, but it's just a weird New York connection.
True. Nell's story did not end with her burial. Over the years, strange tales have emerged from Elizabeth City. The Cropsey home still stands today, rumored to be haunted by Nell's restless spirit. For the past century, those who have lived in the Cropsey home have reported strange happenings. Lights have gone on and off by themselves, doors open and shut on their own accord, and strange gusts of cold air move through the house. A pale figure of a young woman has also been seen moving through the house. Many people passing on the street outside have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a girl looking out of an upstairs window. Residents even say that the figure of Nell Cropsey has appeared in their bedrooms at night.
Ew.
One lady had reported she had lived there, and anytime noises were happening, if she just said cut it out, Nell, or something like that, it would stop.
Ew.
And the other,
I don't like that.
The other lady was house sitting for her friend, and she was the only one there, and the attic light turns on for no reason.
I'd leave.
Same. One of the things that the resident had said, I don't know if she's still the resident now. She was, I think it was 2011, the article was posted.
Mm-hmm.
She was saying that she doesn't think she's she thinks it's haunted, but not anything bad.
So
she thinks it's just, Nell coming home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they seemed very nonchalant about it. It didn't bother them. So in conclusion, what are your final thoughts?
I think that there must be something going on somehow if the cops were given the name of who did it and they didn't look into it at all.
I started to think about today. I have a couple of theories. One, it's not surprising to me that Mr. Cropsey didn't give the letter over because that would go against everything everyone's been saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's not surprising to me.
Right.
What's surprising is that Wilcox is the dad got the letter and gave it to the newspaper, almost knowing the police wouldn't do anything.
See, that's why it's making me think, was there a cover-up of something? Did they want to, be oh, we got the person, it's Jim, case closed. So now they get this other piece, and they're like, yeah, we already closed it. This just gonna add too much work.
I mean, maybe. He was friends with the chief. He walked to his house in the middle of the night, woke him up, and he got, the chief of police got dressed and helped him out.
Right.
So, a prominent man versus a former police chief or whatever he was.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So I think it's a little of status, maybe some sort of cover up.
So what do you think?
I don't think he did it. There was one part of the article where they mentioned something he got really sick in prison. He was on his deathbed, and even on his deathbed, he was still maintaining his innocence, which I know doesn't mean much. People take shit to the grave all the time.
Right.
But I don't know. There was something about this story and the way that it was told that it definitely feels like there wasn't a fair trial at the very least, solely because nothing from the letter was ever looked into.
Right.
And they named the person.
Right.
It still sketches me out that I'm if Wilcox left at 11:15, the letter says that she was outside crying for a while, and people didn't start waking up until 1 with the neighbor shouting. That's an hour of almost 2 hours of time.
Yeah.
And what's his name left by 11:30? Unless she unless I don't know how, I don't think their porch is a wraparound. So it's not unless she's sitting in the dark off to one side so she can't be seen. It's just weird to me that he walks outside and he doesn't see anybody.
Right.
So was she just sitting out there the whole time, just sulking, which that's fine. You don't want to go back inside. You might not want to face people, talk about it, whatever. Maybe you just stay outside.
Yeah, I mean, very possible.
Yeah. And so maybe if it was dark, no lights on, on the porch, and he left, maybe he didn't see her that way.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think he did it though.
Yeah, it's not sounding like he did.
No, I think,
especially if he got pardoned too.
I think it was some local boy trying to steal something. Yeah. And got caught. And it's from what the letter said, Nellie knew him. She could name him.
Right.
It wasn't some stranger. And so in a panic.
Yeah. Hit her. Didn't realize how hard he hit her.
And it sounded like this guy came with a boat.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
A pig is
let me
heavy.
Just get back in my boat.
A pig is heavy. So
you just had to drag it down to the river.
Exactly. And then get back in your boat and you have a pig.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So solved, not solved.
Yeah.
We don't know. There's a lot of people who took a lot of secrets with them.
If he solved.
Officially solved.
Officially solved.
Unofficially questionable.
Yeah.
So.
Well, nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Yeah. What spooky tea you pouring, Lauren? Go ahead.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the shipwreck of the Carroll A. Deering.
Nice.
So the Carroll A. Deering was I knew I had a word to look up.
While Lauren's doing that, I would just like to say that when I went to go put my topic into the spreadsheet, it was just the mystery of Carroll something. And so I was like, I can't tell if this is a person or a thing.
I know, that's why I want it to be a surprise. So the Carroll A. Deering was a 5-masted commercial schooner. I looked it up, it is schooner.
I was here when you did it, so I believe you.
Thank you, confirmation. Which first launched in 1919. Oh, we were kind of around the same-ish times.
Yeah.
But in January of 1921, it was found run aground with no crew in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The ship was constructed in Bath, Maine in 1919 by G.G. Deering Company, primarily for commercial use. She was 255 feet long, 44 feet wide, and weighed 1,879 tons. She was designed to carry coal, and she was the largest and last ship ever constructed by G.G. Deering Company and one of the last wooden cargo ships ever built.
And this is how she ended up.
Run aground.
Run aground.
The owner of the company had named the ship after his son, which is how it got the name, Carroll A. Deering. And I know it maybe is Carroll, but it's spelled Carroll.
It's spelled like the author, Lewis Carroll.
Oh, okay.
I think it may be one too many L's, but
anywho,
if you spelled your kid's name and it's Carl and you spelled it like that, it's now Carroll.
it has to be Carroll. There's an O. Makes sense. At the time, Carroll A. Deering. At the time, the Deering was one of the largest commercial sailing vessels that was designed specifically to carry cargo.
Maybe, we're so stupid. Maybe because you know how a ship is always a female?
Oh, so maybe his son's name was Carl
and he named it
Carroll. That's a potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had only been sailing for about a year when it began its final voyage to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The last voyage of the Deering took place on July 19th, 1920. The Deering set sail from Puerto Rico and successfully arrived in Newport News, Virginia. What was that for? What was it?
That it successfully arrived.
Oh, okay.
I was cheering.
Oh, okay, good. I can't see what you pressed. I can't hear it. All right, so
that's why I thought it'd be a pleasant little surprise.
Oh, okay. I'm just not going to ask you anymore, and then I'll just be surprised as I'm editing.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it stops and you can talk again.
Beautiful. So when it got there to Newport News, it was going to pick up a cargo of coal for delivery to Rio. The crew was a pretty tough one, made up of very competent men. It was captained by William N. Merritt. Merritt was a World War I hero who had been cited for his bravery under fire. During battle, he had captained the Dorothy B. Barrett. They were sunk by a German U-117 off Cape May, New Jersey in 1918, but Merritt was able to save his entire crew. His first mate was his son, Seawall.
Stop.
Seawall, to be a first mate.
Go ahead.
The rest of his 10-man crew was made up of Scandinavians. Whenever I hear
Vikings.
Whenever I hear that, I think of the one joke. Why are there lines on the? No, I have to find it. Hold on. I can't butcher it.
No, because then you'd sound dumb.
Obviously. Did you know all Norwegian warships all have barcodes on the side?
No.
It's so when returning to port, they can Scandinavian.
That's good. You only got one person laughing, though, so if you wanted like a whole crowd.
That's okay. I just needed you to laugh.
Okay.
Everything was going swimmingly. From July 19th to August 26th. The Deering passed the Virginia Capes on its way to Rio, but it was around here that Captain Merritt fell seriously ill. They knew they couldn't push on with their captain in this condition, so they turned back and headed to the port of, is it Lewes, Delaware?
Why are you asking me?
That sounds wrong. So online told me it's Lewes, Delaware. Here they dropped off the captain and their son.
It's like we're so used to things not being how they should be that when it's normal, it's just not right.
Right. Like it does look like it should be Lewis, but I don't know. So a new captain was needed on their voyage to Brazil, so the Deering recruited Captain Willis B. Wormel. He was a retired 66-year-old veteran sea captain, and his first mate they hired Charles B. McClellan. Right off the bat, it was clear that Wormel and McClellan did not get along. And
Wait. I need you to read that.
Wormel's our captain.
Yes.
McClellan's our first mate.
Yes.
So right off the bat, it was clear that Wormel and Wormel and McClellan did not get along. And immediately there was some tension between the captain and his first mate. With everyone in place and ready to go, the Deering left Lewis and set sail for Rio on September 8th, 1920. They arrived without incident where they delivered the cargo. With the job done, Captain Wormel gave his crew leave for a bit and met up with his friend Captain Goodwin. Goodwin was captaining another cargo vessel that happened to also be docked in Rio. The two got to talking about their trips, their crew, I guess typical captain stuff. This is when Wormel filled Goodwin in on his cruise, speaking of them with disdain, saying that he really only trusted the engineer, Herbert Bates. Goodwin also knew Bates and could see why he would be the one that Wormel trusted. On December 2nd, the Deering left Rio and stopped in Bridgetown, Barbados to load up on the supplies they would need for their return trip. While docked in Barbados, loading up on supplies, first mate McClellan went into town where he proceeded to get very drunk. While at a bar, he complained to another captain, Captain Hugh Norton, that even though he was the first mate, he wasn't allowed to discipline the crew without Wormel interfering. He also complained that due to Wormel's bad eyesight, he had to do all of the navigating. But funny enough...
isn't that his job?
The first mate?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
But I don't know boats well enough to know what the captain's job is. I feel like it would be the captain would do... like the route that you take.
Yeah.
And then the first mate's the one who like executes the route.
That's kind of what I thought.
But I don't know. We could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But funny enough, before that, Captain Wormel had spoken to Norton about how he was having trouble with his crew, especially first mate McClellan, stating that he was, quote, habitually drunk while ashore and mistreated the crew. So you have one guy saying, I'm not allowed to be mean to the crew, blah, blah, blah. And the captain's like, he always wants to mistreat the crew. Like, he needs to stop.
Very contrasting stories.
Right. Later, while still in town, Captain Norton, his first mate, and another captain were all at a cafe when they overheard McClellan say, quote, I'll get the captain before we get to Norfolk, I will. Norfolk. However the place you say in Virginia Beach.
It's Norfolk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do you think it was Norfolk?
I don't know. That's how I've heard people say it before.
Well, they're wrong.
Yeah. Okay, good. For one reason or another, McClellan was arrested in a drunken state. But on January 9th, Captain Wormel bailed him out of jail and forgave him for the arrest.
Wow.
But a heated argument took place between the two where witnesses described hearing McClellan threaten the captain's life, saying something along the lines of, I'll kill you before it's over, old man. But either way, they made their way back to the ship and set sail for Hampton Roads, Virginia.
I feel like this captain is like so just like done with his like juvenile behavior that he's like, okay, buddy, whatever.
That's kind of how I'm like seeing it.
Yeah.
21 days later, on January 28th, 1921, the Deering was sighted by the Cape Lookout Lighthouse off North Carolina when the Deering hailed it. So hailing means like kind of grabbing the attention.
Mm-hmm.
The lightship's keeper, Captain Jacobson, reported that a tall, thin man with reddish hair and a foreign accent was calling to him through a megaphone.
How did he know the appearance?
He could see.
Oh, okay.
Like he's in a boat. It's like a lookout ship.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like, I guess how I took it was that he's at Cape Lookout.
Okay.
And he's in a light ship. So it's like a lookout ship. So
Okay.
people kind of like, he's the one who will tell you like rocks ahead. Like he's like a lighthouse, but he's a ship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That
So
makes sense.
as boats are going by, he can see the boat, like
Okay.
more or less. And that's how they
Well-
can communicate.
Why would he be needed during the daytime?
I don't know. I guess maybe if other ships are going by and like something's going on and they need help.
Okay.
So I think just kind of like there in case something happens.
Okay.
So
Well, I
this,
guess if he has a giant light, he could shine it on them at night and see it.
yeah. So I guess at night it's like that, but also during the day, like you're just kind of there.
Yeah.
So this man, calling from the boat, told Jacobson that his vessel had lost its anchor in a storm off Cape Fear, which is like kind of southern North Carolina,
Okay.
and asked that the ship's owner, the G.G. Deering Company, be notified. So this boat saying, hey, we lost an anchor. Can you let our company know? Jacobson did take note of this, but his radio was out, so he was unable to report it at that moment. One thing he said he did notice, though, was that the crew was milling around on the quarterdeck of the ship. According to Wikipedia, the quarterdeck is a raised deck behind the main mast of a sailing ship. Traditionally, it was where the captain commanded his vessel and where the ship's colors were kept. And I think colors are like who you're sailing for.
Yeah.
So this is apparently a spot where the crew of a ship typically isn't allowed to be. So him seeing them there was kind of like weird for him.
Yeah.
Jacobson also said that the man didn't act like an officer and had broken speech. Jacobson took him for being Scandinavian. So
it's gonna be like a
Scandinavian,
mutiny.
potentially. So
Yeah.
Scandinavian are all of the crew members were Scandinavian.
Right.
The next afternoon, another vessel, the SS Lake Elon, was passing through the area and around 5:45 p.m. spotted the Deering sailing a course that would take it directly on the Diamond Shoals. So fun fact about Diamond Shoals,
I was
also
just about to ask.
from Wikipedia. The Diamond Shoals are an infamous, always shifting cluster of shallow underwater sandbars that extend 8 miles or 13 kilometers out from Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Hidden beneath the waves and constantly changing in both form and depth, shoals are believed to be responsible for up to 600 shipwrecks along
Damn.
the Cape Hatteras shoreline, an area commonly known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic.
Oh.
So it's a place you avoid, and you know to avoid it. But the crew of the SS Lake Elon said that there was no one on the ship's deck, so they didn't attempt to contact the ship to warn them of Diamond Shoals.
And how much later was this than when the light boat guy?
The next afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They assumed that the Cape Hatteras lighthouse or the Diamond Shoals lightship would alert them to change course to avoid wrecking on the shoals.
Mhm.
So they didn't see anyone on the boat. They're like, we can't get their attention because there's no one there, but someone else will tell them not to keep sailing.
Did they think they were like inside the boat or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because his radio was down, Jacobson did make a note in his ship's log that said, quote, 5-mast schooner Carroll A. Deering, in passing bound north, reported having lost both anchors and chains off Frying Pan Shoal, asking to be reported, but ship's wireless out of communication, was unable to get in touch with passing vessels. So he's saying, I saw this ship. There was another ship that passed by. I couldn't get in touch with them to tell them, but I'm making a note that their anchors are down and I need to contact their company.
Okay.
Yep. On January 31st, so this is 2 to 3 days after all this stuff happened.
Okay.
So on January 31st, 1921, surfman C.P. Brady was on lookout duty at the Coast Guard station of Cape Hatteras. At dawn, around 6:30 a.m., he spotted the Deering. It had run aground with all of its sails set on the outer edge of Diamond Shoals. He reported the ship, but due to bad weather, rescue ships were unable to approach the vessel. It wasn't until February 4th at around 9:30 a.m. that the ship was able to be approached. It was finally at this point that it was confirmed that the ship was the Deering. So they saw it, they thought it was, but at this point they can get close enough to confirm, yes, it's the Deering.
Okay.
In the days between it first being sighted and finally being approached, the weather had been awful. The waves and weather had made it impossible for the rescue ships to even get close enough to see the name, let alone board it. But by this point, the ship had been battered by the surf for several days. It also became very clear that the ship had been abandoned, all except a 6-toed cat. And apparently there were 2 other half-starved cats, but I thought the 6-toed cat was most important.
Yes.
When the rescuers were able to make it on board the ship, they started to look around to see what they could tell about what the hell had happened to the ship and the crew, who they also confirmed were now no longer on board.
Can we just recap the timeline real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So it leaves Barbados.
Mhm.
And when they left Barbados, that's when the captain got that guy out of jail, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then by, what are we in, December?
Yeah, so it was like December, they left Barbados.
And towards the end of December?
Let me see. They were in Barbados for a really long time. So they arrived in Barbados on December 2nd, and they left Barbados on January 9th.
Okay, so now we're in January.
We're in January.
So they left on January 9th. And when does the light ship guy see them?
21 days later on January 28th.
Okay. So,
Light ship sees them on the 28th.
and that's when this possibly Scandinavian guy with the broken English and whatnot was trying to talk to them. And he also noted there was crew where crew is not typically supposed to be.
Correct.
Then the next day,
Correct.
that boat that didn't have a working radio or whatever.
Jacobson didn't have the working radio. The next day, there was the boat. They just kind of noticed him,
Oh,
noticed
okay.
the ship, and were like, oh, they'll.
Someone will let them know.
Yep.
Okay. And when that ship saw them the next day, they didn't see anyone outside.
Correct. They didn't see anyone on the boat.
I wonder if that's like normal,
I have no idea.
you know? Like I'm wondering if like, yeah, sometimes they're outside, but if they don't need to do anything outside, could they all be inside?
Right, which is why I don't think it raised any alarms for the other ship.
Right.
Because if they're seeing an abandoned ship, they're going to freak out. But I
Right.
don't think they thought.
Right.
it
Like
was
if they don't
anything.
see anyone and it doesn't raise alarm, then that must, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Then the 31st is when 2 days out. So the 28th is when they talk to Jacobson.
Okay.
The 29th is when the other boat sees them.
Mhm.
The 31st is when they're found on the shore. Like when the boat is seen run aground on the shore.
So that's what, 3 days later?
Yeah.
Something like that?
2 to 3 days.
And everyone's gone.
Yeah.
So in the span of like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone.
Yep. And so February 4th is when they get on board. Like the
The
rescue
people.
ship comes and is able to get on board.
So we don't know if anyone might have been on board when they got stuck.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Okay. So when the rescuers were able to make it on board the ship, they started to look around to see what had happened, and they were able to confirm at that point that the crew was no longer on board. And what's wild, the Deering's keel. So the keel is kind of the part that goes under the ship. So think of like, if it's like a point, kind of, it's the point under the ship.
Okay.
That was found to be buried 14 feet deep into the sands of the Diamond Shoals, meaning that it had to have taken a massively tremendous force to bury a nearly 2,000-ton vessel that deep into sand.
Would the storms that were happening be adequate?
I don't think so. Because what it was saying was that, I mean, it could have been part of the storm, but they're just saying like some tremendous force had to have been able to push something so heavy that far into sand.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. One of the first things they noticed was that the ship's steering equipment was damaged, with the wheel being shattered, the rudder disengaged from the stock, and a host of other issues with the navigation system, like the steering equipment being disabled. Much of the equipment also looked like it had been smashed. A sledgehammer leaned ominously nearby.
You know what I'm picturing? Like a ship version of like when you put the car into drive or whatever and put a brick on it and send it into like I'm thinking like equivalent of that, like smash everything up, navigation, steering, whatever, and jump ship.
Yeah, maybe. The ship's log and navigation equipment were gone, as well as the entire crew's personal effects and the ship's 2 lifeboats. There was a ladder hanging over the side of the ship as well. But there were some things that were left behind, like clothing and lockers and boots in the captain's quarter. The beds looked as if they had been recently slept in. The captain's cabin was also in disarray. But in the gallery, it appeared as if food was being prepared for the next night's meal and then just left as it was. Coffee and soup were on the stove. Spare ribs were in a pan. Pea soup was on the oven or on the stove.
So I know you said the captain's room was in disarray, but like in my head, I'm still going mutiny.
Okay.
So was his personal stuff all still there?
I think his personal stuff was gone as well, but there were clothes. Well, there were just clothes and lockers. There were boots in his quarters.
Yeah. Well, because I could see it like, okay, if you're like really quickly trying to get your stuff together, you're not going to get everything.
Right.
And so I was wondering, like, it can't confirm, it could have confirmed a little bit more of a mutiny if all the captain's shit was still there.
Yeah. I don't think they never noted like all of the captain's stuff was still there.
Well, then I feel like they would have if everyone else's stuff was gone. So, okay, cool. Keep going.
The Coast Guards also found a map indicating daily positions of the ship, clearly in Captain Wormel's distinct handwriting. But after January 23rd, someone else was recording the positions and the handwriting was drastically different. The 23rd was 5 days before the ship was seen on Cape Lookout Lightship.
Yes. Okay.
By Captain Jacobson. So Jacobson saw him on the 28th. Handwriting changed on the 23rd.
Okay.
Which is interesting that he saw someone who had an accent.
Yes.
Yes.
And people were walking around in a place that they shouldn't be.
Yes. The Coast Guard tried to salvage the Deering, but they were unable to. The vessel was then declared a hazard to navigation and then, on March 3rd, was destroyed using dynamite to prevent it from becoming a danger to other vessels.
Wow.
Portions of the ship's bow later drifted ashore on Ocracoke Island. Wooden timbers also washed ashore on Hatteras Island and were eventually used by residents to build houses.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Refurbishing.
Shortly after that, on April 11th, 1921, a local fisherman named Christopher Columbus Gray, that is his true name, claimed to have found a message in a bottle floating in the water just off the shore of Bruxton, North Carolina. He quickly got in touch with authorities and turned it over. The message said, quote, "Deering captured by oil-burning boat, something like chaser. Taking off everything, handcuffing crew. Crew hiding all over ship. No chance to make escape. Finder, please notify headquarters Deering." The letter was examined, and it was soon determined that the handwriting in the letter belonged to the Deering's engineer, Henry Bates. This determination had been made by Captain Wormel's wife or widow, so she was the one who looked at the handwriting and said, oh, that's Bates's handwriting.
Yeah.
It was also determined that the bottle had been manufactured in Brazil, making it all the more convincing, because they were in Brazil.
Yeah.
There were also reports of a steamer that
Wait, sorry. Can you read the note again?
Yeah. Deering captured by oil-burning boat, something like chaser. Taking off everything, handcuffing crew. Crew hiding all over ship. No chance to make escape. Finder, please notify headquarters Deering.
So that sounds more so not that like the crew's gone crazy, but that someone's attacking them.
Yep.
And that they were handcuffing the crew.
Yep.
And people were trying to hide.
And that this person like quickly wrote a note through it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when he says take everything off, do you think he means like shut off like all the whatevers?
How I read taking off everything is that the people are taking everything off of the boat.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which could make sense why like their personal effects were gone.
No, that makes, okay. That makes sense. All right, cool. Thank you. Continue.
There was also reports of a steamer that had arrived at the Cape Lookout lightship shortly after the Deering, which suggests hostile action, leading even more to people believing that the letter in the bottle, like what the letter in the bottle said was true.
Okay.
When the ship had passed the lightship, the Captain Jacobson, tried to hail the steamer. He was trying to relay the message the Deering had delivered to him about them missing an anchor.
Mhm.
But the steamer didn't respond, and furthermore, when the lightship captain attempted to get the name of the ship, the crew had unfurled a canvas to cover up the nameplate.
Oh, that's sketchy.
Very sketchy. But with the investigation into the letter, it also raised skepticism. If a crew member did happen to get a hold of pen, paper, and a bottle to write a letter, why would they want their boat and company to be notified as opposed to the police or the Coast Guard? So why would you say notify Deering instead of notify the police? With doubts now rising about the letter, handwriting experts were brought in to look at the letter.
I'm wondering if, like, to know the boat that it came from. So, like, it saying to notify them being like, because we're this ship.
Maybe, but they already said Deering up at the top.
Oh, I just thought that was deer. Like,
their ship name, Deering.
I was like, what a nice way.
We're being invaded by pirates, but dear sir.
Okay, never mind. You're right. Hi.
Oh, Mackenzie. So
I'm glad I clarified these things.
I really am too. So handwriting experts were brought in to look at the letter.
What year is this?
It's like the 1920s.
Handwriting experts. Interesting.
After their careful examination, it was concluded that the letter had actually been forged.
Ooh.
Federal agents went back to question the man who found the letter, Christopher Gray, who
There's federal agents in the 1920s?
Yeah.
When did the FBI? I thought the FBI wasn't created till the 50s.
Let's look.
With Herbert Hoover and the Red, not Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover and the Red Scare.
FBI was created in 1908.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, so that's like extra spicy. We got 1920s FBI.
Yeah, 1920s FBI.
Damn.
That's a good point, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
So they went back to question the man, Christopher Gray, who finally admitted to the forgery. He admitted that he had forged the letter in hopes that the publicity he would garner from finding it would help him secure employment at the Cape Hatteras light station.
You know, can't blame a guy for trying.
After he made his confession, he ran off and hid in the swamp.
Okay.
So I kind of have this feeling he did not get the job.
No.
With all of this and large suspicion that foul play may be at fault, the U.S. government launched a full investigation into the disappearance of the crew of the Deering. A lot of emphasis was put on this investigation because the Deering wasn't the only crew to have disappeared in this area, as there were a few other ships whose crew and even boat had gone missing.
Oh.
There were 5 different government agencies who are also looking into and working on the case.
What?
The Department of Commerce, Treasury, Justice, Navy, and State.
That seems like too many cooks in the kitchen.
I mean, it's 5. I'll tell you what all of them did.
Okay.
So the State Department instructed its officers to be assigned at ports throughout the world to be on the lookout for the missing vessel or members of kidnapped crews. The Treasury Department, through its
This seems like such a large-scale thing that I can't even imagine being put together in the 1920s.
Right.
Like, do you know how long it's going to take those agents to get around the world?
I know. The Treasury Department, through its Coast Guard and Life-Saving Service, were searching the Atlantic coast and adjacent waters. The Navy sent out vessels to assist in the search. The Department of Commerce, through the Bureau of Navigation, was, quote, trying to lift the veil of mystery.
See, what's odd to me is like these weird connections. Why does the Department of Treasury have the Coast Guard?
Right.
And why does the
Commerce have a Bureau of Navigation?
Exactly.
Who's trying to lift the veil of mystery. The Department of Justice had assigned some of its best Secret Service agents to the case, which is like FBI's DOJ.
Yeah.
The government was working on the theory that all of the disappearances that have happened in this area were interrelated. Herbert Hoover, who was the Secretary of Commerce at the time, back when presidents had experience before taking office.
Yeah, well, he still wasn't very good because afterwards we got a Great Depression, so.
But still, he had experience.
True.
That's all I can.
He wasn't like, I think people actually liked him.
And he wasn't like a TV show person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
didn't
think
come from
people-
reality TV.
Yeah. I think he was like a good person too. I could be wrong,
What
but
does
I
that
do
mean?
know him and Coolidge are like responsible for the downfall of.
We just won't think about that part.
Yeah.
So anywho, he was
fine.
He was intrigued by the fact that there had been several other vessels who had disappeared in roughly the same area.
That is sketch.
It is. Most of those vessels were later revealed to have been sailing in the vicinity of a series of powerful hurricanes. But there were 2, a sulfur freighter named the Hewitt and the Deering, who were proven to have been sailing away from the area of a storm at the time.
And they're all like some sort of cargo ship.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is like, is steel coal and sulfur?
Is what?
Like, it's odd things to want to steal. It's not like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean?
But the Deering was coming back from after dropping off its stuff. So it didn't have any cargo in it as it's coming back.
So whatever they would steal would just be,
The ship.
yeah.
Yeah. So Lawrence Ritchie, Hoover's assistant, was placed in charge of the investigation.
Who's assistant?
Hoover's.
Oh.
Ritchie tried to chart what happened to the vessel between when it was last sighted at Cape Lookout and when it ran aground at Diamond Shoals. He did this by reading the logbooks of the Coast Guard lightships stationed in those areas. At this time, there was an Italian inquiry into the disappearance of the vessel.
An Italian?
Yeah, there was another Italian vessel that disappeared. This was the Monte San Michele.
The what?
The Monte San Michele.
Okay.
It had been confirmed that there had been strong hurricanes in the vicinity. So, and I know this doesn't make any sense, but so somehow it was accepted that the explanation for the Deering incident was mutiny. The other ship disappeared from a hurricane, so this one had to be mutiny.
What?
I know.
That doesn't make any sense.
But I think maybe how they made the distinction was the Monte San Michele had disappeared when there had been hurricanes in the area.
And this one did.
The Deering had no hurricanes during the time. So obviously it had to be mutiny.
I mean, plausible.
Right. So in late...
And did they determine that all the other ships and whatnot that had disappeared were all from hurricanes?
I think so. That, all the other ones except the Deering and the Hewitt.
Okay.
In late 1922, the investigation was officially closed, but there was no official finding on the incident. So they just closed it without giving a reason for why they're closing it.
Can you do that?
I guess in 1922. So the following theories are what the U.S. government determined could have happened to the Deering and its crew.
Oh, good.
So first, we have hurricanes. So the Weather Bureau strongly advised a series of powerful hurricanes that have been raging in the Atlantic. But as I said before...
In January?
We've been getting thunderstorms in December and January.
But 1920, the world wasn't on fire.
I mean, maybe. Like, out far enough in the Atlantic, it's still kind of warm, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's like Barbados, like near Barbados and stuff. But now we're back in North Carolina. I don't know. Hurricanes. But like I said before, it appeared as though the Deering was heading away from any storms, not into them. Also, the state of the ship indicates that the evacuation of the crew was orderly rather than panicked. So if they were freaking out because like a hurricane's destroying their ship, they're not going to have an orderly departure.
True.
This one looked like it was very orderly.
Yeah. And I feel like there was like the way things were destroyed was like very specific.
Right.
Versus,
not a
like,
hurricane.
Right.
And a hurricane can't pick up a sledgehammer and destroy things. So, all right, the next one we have is piracy. So many people, to include Wormel's widow, believe that piracy was the cause. It is believed that a group of pirates were responsible for the various disappearances. The Department of Justice was even called in to investigate these rumors of piracy, but no real evidence of this theory has ever emerged, and no suspected pirates have ever been caught.
Do we know if, like, you know, when you said like the handwriting changed?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know if like the entries were still normal though, just a different handwriting?
I think so. I think they were still plotting the points that they were going and talking about all the different points, just in a different handwriting. Okay. Then we have the Russian or communist piracy theory.
Course.
So hardline anti-communists in the government fully believe this theory.
Of course, I just have no doubt.
So apparently, during a police raid on the headquarters of the United Russian Workers' Party, it's a communist organization in New York City, officers allegedly found papers that called on members of the organization to seize American ships and sail them to the Soviet Union.
Okay.
So apparently, in April of 1920, Russian mutineers, so these are people who go against authority, took over a German fishing vessel called the Sinister Schroeder and took it to Murmansk, which is a city in northeastern Russia.
Okay.
It was then confiscated by the Soviet government. The captain and 2 officers of the ship were released and returned back to Germany. A month later, the vessel was taken back to the crew and returned to Cuxhaven, which is just a city.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 Russian officers who had taken command of the Sinister Schroeder the month before were tried and sent to prison. So they're saying, like, people had been taking boats and bringing them to the Soviet Union, apparently.
Yeah, but for Russians to come all the way over to North Carolina,
right,
or near there, capture something and take it all the way back? I don't think so.
Apparently, Captain Wormel had also encountered a man in Brazil who claimed to be a Bolshevik and who threatened that his kind would get Wormel.
Well, his first mate also threatened him. So,
I know. I know. But again, no evidence has ever surfaced of any of these allegedly planned activities being carried out.
Well, I do fully believe that Russia would do some like sneaky shit of stealing some boats. I think in 1920 with what we had, they're not coming all the way over here.
Probably not. Another theory is the rum runner theory. So this is believed that a group of liquor smugglers working out in the Bahamas stole the ship to use as a rum running vessel because this was like during Prohibition.
I thought Prohibition was done by now.
Not in the 20s. I looked it up. It's still going on at this time.
When does it end? The stock market crash. They're like, yeah, you can have your booze. Google Prohibition.
It was a period in the United States between 1920 and 1933.
Oh, they said, you don't have any money and you can't drink.
Poor time for you.
Yeah.
So the Deering would have been large enough to carry roughly $1 million worth of liquor in her hold. But on the other hand, the Deering was an easily identifiable and slow vessel, so it wouldn't really be a target for smugglers. Again, there has been no evidence to support this theory.
Yeah.
So she moves slow. She's very noticeable. You're not going to take her to do rum running.
Right. And it's also like, that's kind of what my thinking is too with like the piracy stuff.
Right.
Like,
right.
what are you going to steal?
Like, what are you taking from the boat?
Right.
They don't have anything in their hold. They've dropped it off. Like, there's no cargo on board.
It's not like it's a fancy ship.
Right.
Or something like that.
It's just like, it's like a run of the mill. It was the last wooden ship constructed. So they've been starting to make better ships.
Right.
Yep. Then we have mutiny, obviously.
I really think that logically speaking, this sounds the most plausible.
So it is believed that maybe something was amiss among the men of the crew of the Deering. We have the known conflict between Wormel and his first mate. And we also have the comments that Wormel had made about his crew while in Rio, saying that he spoke about them with disdain. And more to this, so remember Captain Jacobson who had received the Deering's report? He's the one who they had said like, hey, we lost the anchor.
Yes.
This is Jacobson. Well, he said that the man who gave him the report, the tall, thin, redheadish man, was definitely not Captain Wormel, and by all accounts wasn't even an officer. So it's, first off, if you're not an officer, you cannot talk to other vessels. It's just not what, you're not allowed to do it if you're not an officer. And the way that the man spoke to Jacobson was not the way an officer would speak to someone telling him about a problem. So those were the two things. And then also he was like, I know what Captain Wormel looks like. That's not him.
So what got me thinking, though, about the whole mutiny thing is the first mate was saying that he doesn't let me discipline them and he interferes. And if what the captain is saying is true, where the guy's a drunk asshole, why would they overthrow the person that's like kind of standing up for them?
I don't know.
Unless they did both.
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe they hated both.
Maybe.
Like, fuck you and fuck you too.
Both of you.
Yeah.
Senator Frederick Hale of Maine advocates for this theory. There's so many...
Maine?
There are so many people who randomly just come in to
Get out
talk
of here,
about
Maine.
this.
Go back up north.
So he states that it was, quote, a plain case of mutiny.
Plain and simple.
Discontent among the crew with the captain has all the ingredients for a mutiny, but like all of the other theories, this has never been proven. The Coast Guards also believe that potentially the captain had died and was buried at sea. They say this rumor came about as they found navigating charts in the captain's bathroom and believe that the first mate had been using the captain's room and kept his charts in the bathroom. So they think captain died, first mate now takes over captain's room.
But was he murdered?
We don't know. But local Coast Guardsmen don't believe this theory. Quote, I believe they abandoned her after taking everything of value, said Captain Ballance of the Cape Hatteras station, and ran her up on the shoals intentionally. So he believes they took everything, got into the lifeboats that were gone, like using the ladder, got in the lifeboats, and then just ran the ship in intentionally, kind of like the block on the gas of a car, and they skedaddled.
Definitely, but I definitely think the captain's gone.
Okay.
I don't think he was part of it.
Okay.
Because I'm like, if you're bitching about the crew to somebody,
right,
and that you don't trust them, why would you enlist them to steal shit?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, at the very least, I think he's gone.
Okay. Okay, then we have the next theory, evacuation. This is my main theory. So maybe when the vessel ran aground, the crew got into the life rafts and tried to sail away, but were swept out to sea. So in the area they're in, there could have been up to 90-mile-an-hour winds and waves as tall as mountains. Because remember, this is like the graveyard of the Atlantic.
Right.
Captain Gassill, just another captain, said about this, quote, in such a sea as this, the crew of the Deering manned their lifeboats and tried to make shore 9 miles away. No lifeboat could survive these waters.
But what about the random guy talking to the...
I don't know. I don't have any reasoning for that. Maybe the captain did die, and then they don't know. Ooh, maybe. Okay, maybe the captain did die.
Okay.
First mate takes over, whatever. They don't know those shores and the water as well as this captain does. So they think that they can get into lifeboat and go.
Maybe first mate killed captain because he doesn't like him.
Right.
and maybe made it seem like natural or some shit like that.
Yeah. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna take all the good stuff and we're gonna go.
We're gonna get out of here.
But they didn't know how bad the waters were. So like this other captain said, no lifeboat could survive these waters.
And cocky first mate who's always drunk probably didn't know better.
Right.
Plausible.
Okay, so that's my main theory.
Yeah.
Then of course we have the paranormal explanation.
Aliens.
No, actually.
Oh.
Some people believe that the ship's crew's disappearance has a supernatural explanation. The ship sailed into an area generally considered to be part of the Bermuda Triangle.
That is off of the coast of North Carolina.
So their disappearance is often tied to this, but the Diamond Shoals, the boat's final resting place, is actually several hundred miles away from this general area.
So no.
But like everything else, there's no evidence that anything paranormal is at play. So people like to say, oh, near the Bermuda Triangle. But if you're truly looking at where the Diamond Shoals are, it's not near the Bermuda Triangle. It's like in the general area, I guess close enough. Like Reston is close enough to DC for me to say DC.
That's true. Did we ever know why the first captain got sick?
No, I think it was just like he truly just got sick and he couldn't keep going on. Like it said he was seriously ill. But I don't think there was any foul play for why he got sick.
No, I know, but I'm wondering if like whatever he got sick from, the other guy got sick from and was too far from home to get home to.
No idea. I mean, he was fine in Barbados. Like he made the whole trip to Brazil. He made the trip to Barbados where they like loaded up on more supplies to make the trip back.
Yeah.
So he was fine for most of the trip.
I think first mate did something sketchy.
So you're on like first mate bad guy?
First mate bad guy. He just sounds annoying. Because, okay, how bad can the captain be if he bails his first mate out of jail, who he hates, and then threatens his life, after he just did him a favor?
So then we have the SS Hewitt. So I mentioned how the SS Hewitt also disappeared around the same time. So for the Deering, the crew vanished without a trace. For the SS Hewitt, the whole ship itself, including the crew, disappeared.
But not hurricane related.
Correct.
Okay.
These are the two that weren't hurricane related, which is why they're always lumped together.
Got it.
So I want to talk about this one just a smidge. So the Hewitts' planned route was from Sabine, Texas to Portland, Maine. They were carrying a cargo of sulfur. On January 25th, when the Hewitt was off the coast of Florida, it sent its last message. It was expected to arrive in Boston on January 29th, but when it never did, a search began. When the Coast Guard boarded the Deering after it had run aground, they found the distress signals had been lit. The distress signals are 2 red lights high on the rigging.
Oh, okay.
It was known that the SS Hewitt was in the area, so it is believed that they saw the distress signals, came to the Deering, and let their crew board the ship. So they believe that the SS Hewitt saw the Deering with the distress signals, came over, let everyone on the Deering get on their ship. Hence leaving the Deering abandoned.
But what about the lifeboats?
Maybe they got on the lifeboats to come over to their ship.
Oh.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
But the SS Hewitt was later lost with all hands, so it is possible that the crew of the Deering was lost with it.
Damn. You get saved.
I know. I know.
Damn.
In total, between these two boats, 58 men were lost.
Wow.
And a side note, 3 years before the Deering incident, the USS Cyclops disappeared.
Stop it.
It had been sailing a similar route, departure from Brazil, stop in Barbados, then up the U.S. coast. In this incident, 300 people went missing.
Woo!
Yeah. Because if you're thinking like a USS, you're thinking
it's a ship.
Like military. Like that's a ship.
Yeah.
So final thoughts. So Carroll A. Deering, who the ship, Carl, whoever, A. Deering, who the ship was named after, died in March of 1967 at the age of 84. As of April 2016, the ship's bell and capstan, which is the thing that looks like a big wheel that sailors use to have more strength to lift ropes and such. So it's like a big like captain's wheel, but turned on its side. And it's what people will walk around to like tighten ropes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that from the Deering are on display at the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum in Hatteras. I want to go.
We gotta go.
Absolutely.
We gotta go.
And sometimes a descendant of the six-toed cat is spotted around the Hatteras Ferry dock. And of course, local legend... Oh, wait. Are we done meowing? Yeah. Okay. And of course, local legend says that people have seen ghostly figures and have heard strange noises and sounds around the wreck site. Many paranormal...
In the water?
Like, the Diamond Shoals is an area. So when they're near that area, they'll hear it.
How do they know it's that one if there's been 600?
Good question. And many paranormal and Bermuda Triangle hobbyists classify this case as one of the truly great maritime mysteries.
It is definitely a maritime mystery. That is for sure. I will give them that.
But yeah, so that's the disappearance of the crew of the Carroll A. Deering. Thank you. Did you do a cheer? Okay, cool. Thank you.
I really want one too with just like applause. Because sometimes you just want an applause. You don't necessarily want to cheer.
I don't need a cheer. Yeah, sometimes an applause is good.
Because like when you told me my story was good, I was like, I don't want to cheer. It was a sad story. But like a round of applause is nice.
A round of applause would be appreciated.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you know how I love my boats. You know how I love my disappearances. What is better than a disappearance in a boat?
And a boat disappearing.
Right. Nothing.
Nothing. Quite honestly. Well, and that's kind of how I felt about mine. I was like, technically, it's kind of unsolved.
Right.
But it's like kind of solved, but like it's kind of unsolved. And
But so you go with the mutiny theory?
I think there's two possible options that kind of tie together.
Okay.
I think regardless, first mate did something.
Bad guy.
Bad guy.
Okay.
But from that, it's either he slickly, I know that's probably not a word, killed the captain,
Mm-hmm.
comes to the crew, captain's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now in charge. And they're like, okay, I guess.
Right.
And then goes from there.
Because I mean, I get the chain of command
Yeah.
would be captain, first mate, other crew members.
Yes. And I'm also thinking about the fact that like this guy doesn't really sound like he knows what he's doing because
No.
he's drunk all the time.
Right.
And he takes his fucking maps into the bathroom. Like,
I know that part's weird.
so weird. And so if he doesn't know what he's doing, he's drunk all the time, maybe he was drunk and passed out. And that's why that crew member was like, hey man, this happened.
Oh, maybe.
Because like they couldn't get him to wake up because he's drunk all the time.
And I wish they had given us a description of what the first mate looked like.
Yeah.
Because we know that the other guy who signaled the lookout, like Jacobson, we know that he was tall, thin, and had red hair.
Yes.
Does our first mate have red hair? I don't know.
I don't know.
And all the pictures are black and white, so I can't tell.
Well, red hair would come out pretty light, I feel like.
Yeah, but then red, blonde, in a black and white picture, it would be kind of hard to tell.
But at least we would know it's not brown.
True. Unless it's dark red. That could maybe look brown in black and white.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Or the captain was overthrown by the crew and like the crew was loyal to the first mate. Because wasn't the
Maybe.
first mate the same first mate from the first captain?
No, the first mate from the first captain was Sewell.
Oh,
Or Sewell,
that's right.
who was that captain's son. Both of them got off
Okay.
in Lewis, Delaware.
Yeah.
And then they got a new captain and a new first mate. So this captain and this first mate, so Wormel and McClellan, they weren't friends beforehand. They were both picked because one was a captain and one was a first mate, and they were put on together.
Third theory now. McClellan,
Uh-huh.
the first mate,
Yeah.
kills the captain.
Uh-huh.
Because he's like, yeah, mutiny. And all the rest of the crew is like, no, fuck you. And then kills him.
Okay. So what happened to the crew, though?
They either put out that distress signal, got the boat came, got the people, they went on it, then disappeared.
Right.
Or they got onto the lifeboats. Lifeboats can't survive in the storm.
Right.
Or since they're Scandinavian, maybe they got in their lifeboats and rowed back to Scandinavia. Wherever that is. And just live the rest of their life.
Right. These are all things that I have no idea. But I think that's why the Department of State had put people at all these ports to
Yes.
try to see if they could find people. But I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Who
But
knows?
yeah, wild.
Crazy.
Love this stuff.
It's also insane just like how heavily investigated this was.
I think it was so heavily investigated because so many ships had been disappearing
Yeah.
that they were like, okay, like we need to start looking into
Yeah.
this.
Make sure there's nothing.
So it was like the first one, it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
The second one, oh, so sad. Then when it's like been multiple, they're like, okay, like something's going on.
I was also thinking about it too for the Department of Commerce or whatever. I wonder if the navigation is like the navigation of like goods and stuff.
Oh.
Because it was like, this was
Oh, that's smart.
coal, this one was sulfur.
That's smart. That could make a lot of sense. Look at you using that brain. Well.
I got the full brain cell today.
Oh. So this is North Carolina.
Yeah. Check it off our list. I think I already played that song, but that's okay.
You did, but that's okay. You played it at the beginning, you played it at the end. Nice little sandwich.
Yeah. We have 1, 2, 3 more states, DC.
Yeah.
And then
we're into round 4.
I'm making the social media posts slowly, as you can see, to like not get overexcited. And so like I do a little bit at a time. And so I'm like, everything will be ready by the time we switcheroo. But like if I do it now, I'm going to start switching it out and be like, fuck it.
Right. You just have to get through these last couple states.
Yeah.
But no state is better or worse than any other states. Just because you're at the end doesn't mean anything. It just means we talked about you at the beginning of the last round.
Yeah. Well, there's some states that are definitely better than others.
There are, but we won't talk about that because people get mad at us.
Well, we talk about it all the time.
I know.
Here's the thing. There are not so good states, but that doesn't mean that everyone in that state is not a good person.
Right. Yes.
Unfortunately, there are some good people in shitty states.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, follow us on everything.
Yeah.
Rate and review us. If you do, send us an email or a social media message and let us know, and we'll send you some stickers.
Yeah. If you have Spotify, you can comment, and I always reply.
Oh, yes.
So thank you to, I forget her name, but she commented and helped us figure out how to pronounce one word that we were not saying correctly.
And she did it in a nice way.
And she was very nice, or maybe they, I don't know.
They
were very nice about it. And I was very appreciative. Like, it wasn't like, you stupid. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, this is how you say it. I'm like, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Because there are sometimes you just don't know.
You just don't know. Speaking of not knowing how to pronounce things.
Oh no.
So my friend, she listened. We are correct. There is a beach in New Hampshire. It is not called New Hampshire Beach. But there is a beach.
Wonderful.
They do have a beach. They do have coast.
Okay.
There's a couple of different beaches. Don't remember their names.
NH Beach. New Hampshire Beach.
N New Hampshire, comma, beach. I don't know if that's where you'd put a comma, but it's not New Hampshire Beach like Virginia Beach. It's a beach in New Hampshire.
Yep. Yep.
a New Hampshire beach.
A beach that is located in New Hampshire.
So I was right. Really, I didn't give a fuck about the name. I was right that there are beaches that touch the ocean in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
We also should have known that because I forgot I did the story of the Smutty Nose Island.
Yes, you did.
Which is between Maine and New Hampshire.
Yep.
In an ocean.
There's 50 states. It's hard to remember everything.
But I loved her advice on Massachusetts places where she said, whatever you think it is,
it's not.
It's not. So like say what you think it is and then change it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Anything in New England is just lost cause.
As I'm like looking at things like in North Carolina, I was like, I think I have a little bit more confidence that however I say this will be correct.
I'm still unsure.
And, they also tried to get all upset because of how you were saying something, queechy, quetchy, whatever.
I looked it up.
I defended you.
Thank you.
And they're like, that's not how you say it. This is how you say it. And I was like, we looked it up.
Yeah.
Google. And sure enough, they looked it up on Google and played it. And they were like, what is this? This is how we've called it. I was like, how does it feel to be wrong?
Yeah. Thank you. Learning something from our
They
show.
were like, well, everybody I know in New England calls it this. And I said, well, maybe they're all wrong.
Google told us otherwise.
Someone needs to write into Google and say, you're not pronouncing this correctly because the Google lady said that whatever it was what it was.
Yeah. So we're going to end it there. Stay scary.
Stay safe.